Recording in progress.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
How was the conference?
Oh, it was pretty good. Some of the sessions were better than others, but that's usually how it is, I think. Yeah.
Yes. But everything, on the most part, was pretty good. Good.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Good.
Of course, what wasn't really addressed was what we all wanted to talk about. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody's going to touch that one.
So I watched the Supreme Court hearings today.
And could you make sense out of what they were?
Not really. If I would have to guess, I would say they are not going to lift
Yeah.
They're going to stay with the proviso would be my guess, but.
Mm-hmm. Oh. And so it shall continue.
Yeah. Oh, Dr. Stratos got a haircut.
Cut it all off.
Yes, she did. Hmm. Angela. Hello. Did you watch this? Did you watch the Supreme Court hearings? And what do you think?
This is being recorded, so we'll talk afterwards.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, 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 hello.
All right, guys, I'm getting on a meeting.
Hello, Mr. Campbell.
I don't see your picture, Mel.
Hello.
And I'd like to call this meeting of the Academic Committee to order, please. This meeting is a remote conferencing meeting, and it is being live streamed by County Channel. At this time, I'd also like to recognize our participants. We have a couple participants from the Reading Plus team, Rosemary Williams, and I thought I saw someone else on here from that team. I'd like to welcome you. Also, we have, in addition, the committee, Linda Hitmar is on, and in addition to committee members, Melvin Campbell and Angela Middleton, we have Melissa Murray, Karen McKenzie, Ingrid Boatwright, Earl Campbell, I believe, and I'm missing somebody, of course, Dr. Stratos. Is there anybody who I've missed? Okay, I don't hear anyone, so I'd like to welcome you all. And at this point, I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and
to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you. First order of business is approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Madam Chair, I
Chair,
move.
I move.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I
Ms.
move that we
Middleton?
approve the agenda.
and
I'll second.
Mr. Milkamp. Great. All in favor of approving the agenda,
Aye.
please signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Next.
Aye.
Great. Ms. Cushenberry, do we have any public comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Next order of business is approval of the July 28th, 2021 committee meeting minutes. Do
Those
I have a-
minutes. I move we approve the 28th of July 2021 committee meeting.
I second.
Minutes.
All right, and Angela seconds. All
Yes,
in
ma'am.
favor of approving those minutes signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So that's 3-0. So our order of business today is a presentation of the Reading Plus program. Prior to turning it over to Dr. Stratos to introduce the people, I just wanted to make a brief comment. You may see me standing up from time to time because I'm dealing with a leg issue, and it feels better when I stand than when I sit. So if you see me hop up, that's what I'm doing. All right, Dr. Stratos.
Mrs. Robine, thank you very much for this opportunity presenting to you Dr. Rosemary Williams, Ms. Holly, I may not say it right, Holly, but I'm going to go my way, Holly Quaratella. Am I close? Thank you. And Ms. Lisa Hitmore, who are from Reading Plus and also from the Instructional Services Division. We have Ms. Melissa Murray, our Director for Literacy, pre-K to 12. Every now and then I'm slipping her down to the younger ages. And we have our Teaching and Learning Secondary Director with us, Karen McKinsey. Prior to the presentation, to share Reading Plus has been a pilot with our school district last year. You'll get some information coming forward from the pilot and as well as upcoming initiatives and current initiatives that we have. At this time, I'd like to turn over to Dr. Rosemary Williams, our lead point of contact as well with Reading Plus.
Thank you all for having us. As Dr. Stratos said, I'm Rosemary Williams and I live in Middle Tennessee. If I disappear, we have horrible storms, so hopefully my internet will stay okay. We want to share with you all today what we've done in the past with Reading Plus and Beaufort schools and what our plan is for the future. So we currently have all your middle schools and all your high schools currently have access to Reading Plus. We are doing a year-long complimentary pilot for 4th and 5th graders this coming school year. We are also doing a study with Johns Hopkins University. And I don't know that we've even touched on that, Dr. Stratos. And we're here to help. So if I lost the presentation,
Do you want to? Oh, okay.
I just put mine up. I wasn't sure, so
Okay,
hopefully that's all
I
right.
took mine down because
Okay.
I wasn't sure if you all wanted to share.
Yeah.
So I let
I
you share the
appreciate
screen.
that.
So
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking time in your afternoon to hear about Reading Plus and our partnership. And I will turn it over to Lisa Hitmore.
Hello, everyone. I have been with Beaufort County Schools for the last year and a half, and we've worked together. I've worked closely with Melissa and Karen and Dr. Stratos, and we had a great year last year, even though we were struggling with COVID issues. So I wanted to discuss a little bit about what we saw last year, some of the data. We were at these 3 middle schools, and Beaufort Middle School had an average of 45 lessons for the year. They gained 35 words per minute, which means their fluency increased. They became more fluent readers, which helps students then understand what they're reading. Their level gains were 1.6 grade levels. They had 402 students active. Hilton Head Middle School had an average of 42 lessons for the entire school. They gained 35 words per minute. They gained almost 1 grade reading level for the school. They had 69 active students. And then finally, we had Bluffton Middle School that had an average of 31 lessons. They gained 32 words per minute and also gained 1 reading level. They had 91 students that were engaged. Our top classes last year in each school, and keeping in mind again, this was an unusual year with unusual events and kind of a revolving door as far as what we were able to do. But this is Ward's advanced math class, which sounds like that. I'm sure that's not actually, that's because of our single sign-on system, but it was a class in Beaufort Middle School. They were our top class. They averaged 110 reading lessons. They averaged a gain of words per minute, 120 words per minute, and even more, their average reading level gains for the class average was 4.7 grade levels, which is phenomenal. And that's what that practice will do, and that practice of fluency and practice of comprehension. Corbett's class at Hilton Head Middle School was the top class there. They had 165 reading lessons. Average guided rate gain was 136 words per minute. Average reading level gains for that class was 4.5. And then Engler at Bluffton Middle had 74 reading lessons, 61 words per minute for their guided rate gain, and a gain of 1.4 grade levels.
Can I ask a question? How would you like to handle questions?
It doesn't matter. How do you guys want to handle it, Rosemary and
You can answer them
Holly?
if you have them, and we'll be happy to answer.
Okay, I just need some clarification.
Sure.
So when I'm seeing average reading lessons, 110, is that per student in the group? Or
No, that's the class average.
so
that entire class averaged 110 lessons for the year. Each lesson is about 15 minutes long.
okay.
So that is per student too.
That is per student then, really, right? Because you would take all the students in the
Well,
class.
some students would be more, some would be
Right.
less, but yes, that's
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so are the lessons individualized by student reading ability?
great question. So what all students do when they begin Reading Plus is they take what we call the insight assessment, and it looks at the student's motivation and how much they like to read, how much they have belief that they can improve as a reader. And then we look at their vocabulary level, and then we also look at their comprehension level. Each individual student is put on their own path based on those scores. And so then that they are assigned whatever rate and level that is appropriate to them.
So,
Thank
Lisa, for a point of clarification, the Insight Assessment does an interest survey as well as the individual reading assessment per student. Then it's designed prescriptively for the learner. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Campbell, I see your hand. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, but first of all, the average guided rate gain.
Mhm.
Explain that to me, first of all. What do you mean by?
So a fluent reader, we've done a lot of data collection. And with all this data collection, the people who invented the program actually invented something that records eye movement when someone's reading. So
Okay.
we've taken all of these hours of eye recordings, and so we know that based on the grade level, based on the proficiency of the student, they should be reading at a certain rate at certain grade levels.
Is this per minute or
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
is this per minute?
Yes, it is. It's words per minute. What Reading Plus has is called a guided window. And so we guide their eyes to become more fluent in the way they move across the text from the top to the bottom, left to right. Our goal is to increase them to be at least speaking rate. So that's our goal, which is about 150. And then we also work on grade level goals as well for words per minute, which is different because we're talking about silent reading fluency, which is different than oral reading fluency, which will look different as far as the numbers that we're looking at.
I want to make sure I'm understanding those numbers we're looking at. Are you saying they have gained that, or this is where they are?
They have gained that. They have gained
120
that.
more words per minute.
On average, as they're reading through these passages, they are 120 words per minute faster than when they started.
Wow.
It's amazing, yes.
And the other thing I want to know is how come those two classes there, the accelerated classes, or what, their average reading level gain was almost 5 years of reading. And I'm anticipating that they're already reading their grade level if they were advanced math. And now they're reading 5 years ahead of that level. Is that what that's saying, or no?
That is saying that they're from where they started at the beginning of the year. And remember, each child was different.
Yes.
Wherever they started, they're 4.7 instructional grade levels higher. I can't speak to who was in the class. I don't know that. Maybe Dr. Stratos or Melissa could.
Well, that's relevant to me because it's not reflective if I can't see the other children's average, because the slide before this, can you show me the slide before this, somebody?
Sure. There you go.
Beaufort Middle School.
Now remember, that's the
reading,
entire school. That's 400
I
students.
understand. That's what I'm talking about. That's the entire school, average 1.6 grade level, which means that if that one class was 4.5 or whatever it was, 4.7, then that means that the kids at the lower spectrum of that group didn't really gain that much. And I don't see any evidence of where their gain was. So where their loss was, how did that average come down to such a low average? And the same thing with the middle school. I don't know how many children were involved, but only 69 at the middle school. So if you took a class out that averaged 4.5 gain, what did the other children average if they brought that average down to 0.9? That's relevant to me.
Well, and we have all of that data that we can provide, but for today's sake, we are focusing on the ones that made the most gains.
Yeah, because I want to focus on the one I want to focus on the one who needs to make the most gains.
Right. And the district has that data as well.
And I want to just a clarifying statement. I hope that this helps, Mr. Campbell, is that inside of the schools, how Reading Plus was used was as an intervention. And so what we had to do, although the students were tied to that group, we had to create intervention groups. So there's an implication there of X amount of students that are in that class are now part of this strategic intervention group that used Reading Plus. So it was layered. So this data is pulled from PowerSchool, but on the back end, because we used it for intervention, we had to do at the school level, create groups where we were able to pull from different classrooms to be part of the intervention group. Does that help make sense? So that might not have been that whole Mr. Ward class, right?
It may have been the homeroom.
Some representative students were part of this intervention group, and that's the growth that they made.
Okay. That link towards advanced math, 6th grade.
My guess is it might have been the homeroom. And that's what they were tied to, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay.
But what we can be able to do is back out who the students are in order to have a better understanding of where the students are and who they were, because I think there's a misnomer by looking at column A. And
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
recognize
okay,
that-
column A, a misnomer, and when I
Yeah.
see that reading gain, if you're talking about how many children is that in that group, I don't care whether it's Mr. Ward's advanced or some other select group, how many students are in that select group that shifts that average? That's what I really want to know. If that's 20 of the 90 kids, then that's significant to me. If it's 5 out of the 90 kids, then that's significant also. But it's a lot much better reading if it's a smaller set than a dominant set, because that means the other part of the set bringing that average down to what you said the total average of the school was, which is nothing near 4.7. So we can move on.
And this is, we do benchmark comparisons. And so we have 3 different times a year, 2 or 3 different times a year, where we compare where they were at the beginning, where they are at the middle, and where they are at the end. Again, because of COVID, some of these numbers are not as, we don't have them, as many of them as we would like. But for the students, we can see benchmark. I'm just going to talk about Beaufort Middle School since it's on the top. I'll give you a few minutes to look at this, but students that were below 5 grade levels at the beginning of the year on their original benchmark were 26% of the students. In the middle of the year, we had 23%. And actually, that was benchmark 2, and I actually, thinking from memory, I don't know, it may have been closer to towards the end of the year. I don't know, because we had such a year last year. Below 4 grade levels, if they started, it was 17%, and it went down to 15%. Below 3 grade levels, we started at 16%. We went to 13%. Below 2 grade levels were 11%, and we went to 12. Below 1 grade level, we were at 6%. We went to 11. And then at or above grade level, we were at 21%, and then we went up to 29%. I'll give you a few minutes to just kind of peruse that.
These are same children, and benchmark 1 is benchmark 2.
The benchmark, yes, it's the same children, yes.
Okay.
And the percentages are out of the group size is 402, correct, at Beaufort Middle?
Correct.
I didn't hear that. What did you say, Kathy?
The group size was 402, so
Okay.
26% of 402 is 104 students.
Yeah.
At the benchmark 1 and benchmark 2,
Benchmark 2, you got more than 100% of the students in there. Well, how come the numbers are so high?
I will say that 400 were the ones that were enrolled and doing the lessons. We most likely assessed more than that, so we could then gauge who needed the intervention and who did not. So it was probably a larger number than that 400, if that makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
Lisa,
Yeah,
so
but
go ahead, Mr. Campbell.
Total percentages in benchmark 2 is more than 100%.
right.
How come?
The distribution. So if you add up the 23, 15, 13, 12, and 11, don't include the 29. Correct?
Yes.
Lisa?
Well, why wouldn't you include trying to explain
Because
that to me?
that's a replication of at or above, is giving you at or above grade level growth, if I'm correct,
Gross.
right? But your leveling of students is 1 through 5. Am I, yes?
That would be my thought as well.
Okay.
I don't
So
get it.
your at or above grade level, is that looking at students? I just want to understand where the at or above would fall into. And only because it's the first I'm seeing this slide from what we had said earlier for discussion. So I just want to be clear with that as well. So if I'm looking 1 through 5, at what level is my grade level being definitive at then? Because it doesn't add up.
Yeah, and I would have to ask our research people to give you definitive reasons or answers to that, but I'm going to say it does, if they're at or above, I don't know. I'm going to have to have our research team answer you on that one.
Yeah,
Because it
because
comes out-
all the others total correctly except that line.
Right.
All the others exactly 100%, which is,
Right.
what it should be.
Right. It's at 103.
Yeah. I mean,
But
yeah,
Yeah, but the,
I'll accept that as a tolerance, but,
Right.
this is a little bit more, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to ask our research team because they're the ones that this is actually right off of our dashboard reports. So I am not going to guess. I will have to get that answer for you.
Okay.
Is it possible to get that, Lisa?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Sure
because
can.
it's not. That's why I was going to back it out, but even at that, it's at 74%.
I will ask that
It
question.
could be a tolerance. I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
All of them could have been rounded up. Everything could have been rounded up there.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
3% worth of rounding up, but that's what I want to know.
Okay.
Okay.
I will get you that answer. Just to talk a little bit about our partnership for this year, as far as the middle school students, the students who were going to be using this year, we already have had some planning sessions. I've had them with each of the schools, and we've decided, what our goals are as far as how many lessons, what focuses they want on growth. We had a training session. We've had 3 training sessions. We had one for new teachers, new to Reading Plus. We've had one that are returning teachers. We did some brainstorming and some training. And then we also had an administrator training where we discussed not only the program, but then also some motivation ideas and different things that we'll be doing for the year. We will also have a virtual launch review meeting. So after the schools have started, they've started to get some data. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about how the launch went, if there's any data they have questions about, if they have any questions overall, and then we're going to kind of look at, how they're using and go over some best practices. We have another training on the data for the schools on or around January 4th. And then I continuously, proactively give data to the teachers when I see things that I want them to be aware of. And then I also give it to administrators, both at the schools and the district level. And so we try to touch base. I talk with Melissa quite often, and we say, hey, we need to look at this class, this school, they're doing really great. Or, we just continuously keep in communication. We have some data coaching sessions that are coming up in the spring, again, where we're talking about the data. How do we improve it? What does it look like? Particularly thinking about next year. And then at the end, we have, again, site-based, school-based proficiency growth discussions on, how the year went and next steps and what we can do to prepare for the next year.
So Lisa, if I could just give 2 points right now. I
Yes.
spent a significant time over at Beaufort Middle today, and Ms. Sands, Tracy Sands, her board. Yeah, so you're familiar with it.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Super kudos to the work that has been happened there and with the sites. And I took photos of her with the awards. I think it was they're very proud. I have to share that. You could see that within the school site. The second thing I just want to share with the board membership is that Lisa also sits in our coaches meetings on a regular basis with Melissa Murray, and I think that's important as well. So she's able to hear the growth and the work that's happening with our coaches, so that also try to keep the same type of nomenclature, right, amongst our instructional practices. And it keeps her up to breast on where we're going with our coaching team. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to bypass these because this is exactly what I just told you from that chart. And we are going to move on to now talking about our elementary school pilot. And the partner for that is Holly. So I'm going to let her discuss that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Holly, and I'm going to be managing your Reading Plus Elementary pilot. And this pilot, Lisa, if you could send me forward one. Perfect. Okay, so this pilot's going to include complimentary licenses for your 4th and 5th grade district students for extended intervention services with your interventionists at every school during the school day, and then also for your after school programs for this whole entire school year. We're going to advance again, please. These right here are the schools that have already signed up as part of our partnership. Sorry about that. They've signed up when we published our presentation, but more schools have already joined on. So we're providing, I want you to know that we're providing licenses for all the elementary schools in the district. So if more schools want to join the pilot, it's not a problem at all. We can get them up and running right away. So this list is from our time of, when we published this presentation. So we haven't been able to make any more changes to it. So you'll probably see more. Thank you, Lisa. And so now the pilot goals, through our initial meetings with your district leaders, we established goals already for this pilot. Through the utilization of Reading Plus with Fidelity, our goals for your students are to increase their reading proficiency, their comprehension, their vocabulary, and increase their fluency. So you saw that it was increasing in your middle school, and we are wanting to do that kind of thing with your elementary school as well. Okay, and so now as we look at this is our partnership with you. Through our partnership, you're going to receive our services for implementation planning, customized live training for educators and administrators, one-to-one data coaching sessions, proactive data monitoring, dedicated support. I'm going to be there for not only your site administrators, but your interventionists, your after-school teachers, and your district leaders. And we will sponsor, Reading Plus is going to sponsor motivation contests for your students so that they stay motivated and excited and make the gains that we all want them to make. And we'll have data review meetings. Now the next slide is going to provide you with a visual representation of the services that I'm going to deliver. Now it kind of looks a lot like what Lisa was showing you as you're going through, because we work together. We want to provide you with that great service so that your students will be able to make the gains. So we're going to start strong. We're going to build that momentum, and we're going to celebrate their success, not only at the end, but all the way through to keep them motivated and excited. So this part right here, the live virtual planning kickoff meeting, we've already had. We met with your district leaders to discuss your needs, your goals, and the scope of the pilot. And then we set some training dates for you already. The live virtual initial training is for your interventionists and your after-school teachers, and that's going to be held September 14th through the 16th. So we have different sessions so that they're not these large sessions. We have 4 different ones planned so that we can make sure that they're interactive lessons so your teachers really will understand how to utilize this resource. Following that, much like what Lisa was telling you, we're going to have a launch review training for the elementary administrators that's going to take place after that adaptive assessment, which is our insight that we talked about earlier. This training is going to provide those administrators with complete profiles of their students' reading abilities, based on that adaptive assessment. So they're going to be able to see where their students are when they start the program. And I'm also going to talk to them about how to track the progress using the data that they're going to have. The next part is we're going to have that live virtual, just like Lisa's having with the middle school. In the high school, we're going to have the live virtual engage with data training. And that's going to be conducted to share how to use that rich data, because Reading Plus has so much data in the management dashboard to inform instruction. So we want to make sure that teachers know how to use that. I'm going to be monitoring your students' data and providing on my end and providing you feedback to both your building and your district leaders with personalized follow-up meetings, because the whole goal is that they're going to make the progress that we want them to make. We have established goals that we want, and we want to continue through monitoring to make sure that this continues on. And then we will have a mid-pilot review meeting. And at that meeting, we're going to have some more formalized reporting so that you can see where they are, where they started, and where they are mid-year, and then make recommendations based on their progress at all of the sites to make sure that every site is utilizing it to the fullest. And then we're going to have, I'll still continue to do the data coaching sessions, just like Lisa is doing at the middle school with her teachers, and high school. I'm going to be doing that at the elementary level. So they'll get the same kind of service, even though it's a pilot. They're going to get that same service, so they'll know how to use it. And then the final pilot review meeting is where we're going to give you a formalized final report with all the data of your students' growth for the entire year, and show how they've succeeded through. Now, before I go to my next slide, do I have a question?
I have one. So,
sure.
This also applies to the middle school. Are these, so the teachers that are going to be working with this, are they all working with students that have been identified for interventions? Are these specific intervention groups that will be using this program?
Correct. So at the elementary school, that is specifically what we are working into, because as you know, we have that whole group tier 1 solidified. And so we do not want to add a layer to the classroom teacher, but we do know that there are some of our 4th and 5th graders that fluency is very much the need and a strong focus. At the middle school, it has been used for intervention. There's a lot of research that shows efficiency of eyes and fluency can falter even if a child is a proficient reader. They might read well, but they're not as rapid as they need or should be. And so in those cases, we can push this in as an intervention for them. But the intent of this is to start as an intervention tool. But it has very high interest reading. So I know that in some of the middle schools, some kids just chose to read some of the text.
One more question. Is this something that the kids can also do at home, or does it have to be done at school?
No, this can be done at home. The reports are really robust, so it tells you how long it took them to read, how did they respond to each of the questions. The questions align, so they're very consistent. So it will. So even if the teacher reviews the data after and being at home, it's very easy to tell next steps from it being home. And there is this built-in idea of where the teachers review that data and conference with the students to see about their progress. But yeah, it absolutely can be used at home too.
Okay.
Mrs. Robon?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I wanted
my final question was, how many 15-minute sessions per week are we aiming toward?
So if we can get children to have 80 lessons at proficiency, so which means that the quiz that they take at the end, they are scoring at 80%. That the independent research from Reading Plus says that that equates to 2 grade levels, increases in grade level.
Right, and if we could get, an hour and a half per week, they should gain 2.5 reading levels of growth.
So, Melissa, and I don't mean disrespect to our Reading Plus team, we're providing another reading material on the tiered 1, 2, and 3. How are we blending the Reading Plus with the interventionists? What is our preference for using the Reading Plus intervention versus another product line?
So let's think in elementary, because as you know that there are some options, but the elementary reader is very complex. So the children that are needing some strategic support and interventions in reading, what we're putting in place, we've had level literacy intervention, as you all know, but what we're finding is there are some students that need something more strategic and precise based on the needs. So SIPS, which is the Systematic Instruction in Phonics, Phonemic Awareness, and Sight Words, I think you all have heard me mention that. That's for the students that it's really about accuracy. They don't have that letter sound correspondence yet. They need that additional support with foundational skills. And so we have that. Then we still have LLI, which is a strong resource, but we are getting much more precise about who gets what based on the needs. And now fold into Reading Plus, we're really gearing towards 4th and 5th grade because there's the early learners K through 3. And at this point, fluency leads to increased comprehension. So some of our 4th and 5th graders, what we know, it's about practice. They need that extra support with efficient reading, and then that leads to an increase in comprehension. So what we're breaking down is those running records. What is their strategic first step, right? So if it's foundations of reading, we have SIPS. If it's about this holistic growing of the reader, we have LLI. If we really need to refine fluency and comprehension for our 4th and 5th graders, now we have Reading Plus for the intervention. And then we can also utilize it for after school.
Thank you. Ms. Boatwright?
Thank you. I have 2 questions. One is, and it's kind of what Kathy had asked already, if we've talked a lot in the ESSER and ARPA funding about extending the school day or, after school activities, tutoring. How would this work in terms of the various community-based after school programs, either at churches, Boys and Girls Club, NOC? Can these kids use these programs at those places, and can the staff there help if necessary? Can they, do they have any way of overseeing some of this?
So, Melissa, I'll bring forward. So, Mrs. Boatwright, that is actually one of our growths, to have the staff at our community-based areas from the Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, including NOC, to set up a PD for their staff, because that's actually the next layer that we're trying to work at, as well as being able to work then to recognize you for your time of service. So I've been able to clear that through our CFO for outside agency to get payment for their PD time for learning how to use Reading Plus. So that just got a yes, like Wednesday, Thursday of last week, which is a good thing, right? So, we're
huge
shifting. Yes, ma'am. It's huge, but we haven't, and I just had conversation with Dr. Campbell at that, as well as our division on Thursday, on how we could look at, through ESSER funds, we also looked at having someone who would be our point of contact for community growth and our after school program and volunteers. And this would be part of their responsibility, but we want to get the training even before that person gets onboarded.
Oh, that's amazing. And I think, hopefully, I know that there's groups that have already been identified, but I was talking to some people about, there are some programs that maybe they're not formalized yet. If there's a process, like say a church group where they know the kids go after church and that they're working with these programs, if there's, down the line as an area of growth, if there's a certification process, because generally speaking, these people are like, look, we're here and we want to help these kids, and they're, the kids are behind. So what can we do? So I think that's amazing. And then my second question is, how does this program work with English language learners?
Melissa,
Are there separate?
Yeah. So this program can be utilized for anyone that's reading at a first grade level or above. So it's not for all English language learners, but some. The literacy background, when a child is learning to read, and you probably remember this or you saw this with your own kids, there's that time where as a reading teacher, you actually give them a window. So it's usually on a card, you place it in the book, and it helps guide their eyes. Then that slowly moves into maybe the bookmark goes upside down, or you all as readers, probably there's times where your eyes get tired, so you put your finger or a page inside of the book to help you keep track of where you're going. And so that's the science behind this. So you can see even with the English language learners, what this will help do is train their eyes to follow the words in the appropriate way, and it will increase their rate automatically. So it's intuitive to, when a student is reading something faster and answering the questions correctly more quickly, then that window to train their eyes gets bigger and faster. And so it just kind of builds up for them until they are at that proficient reading rate to match their speaking. So yes, it can absolutely be utilized for our English language learners. But again, we want to use it for the right group of kids to make sure that we're matching it correctly.
And if you don't mind, just as a follow-up for that, Madam Chair. So when you say, like, if you have an 8th grader, but they have a 1st, 2nd, or 3rd grade reading level, so they speak some English, are they, they work independently, right? The group's not aware that they're working at like a 2nd grade level, or, that kind of thing. I mean, how does that work in terms of as a middle school program?
Absolutely. So this is right on their class link. They click the button, it launches their page. All of the pages look very similar. So when they take the insight, they're asked a lot of questions about what interests them. And so then it generates that for them. So, I equate it to a Netflix, so based on your interest, it says, we recommend you read this one next. And then, the benefit of that too, because if they have a high interest level around it, then sometimes they are going to be more successful. They can read a harder text, so it has that background. But no, it's very individualized. And when other folks are engaged in it too, that tracker really keeps your eyes in the text.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really excited about both those answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's students at the middle school level will have, I'm getting some feedback. I don't know if you're hearing that as well, everyone?
Yes, we are. We're hearing an echo.
Yeah, I don't know why. Can you hear it now? Is it okay?
That's
perfect.
better.
So we also have high interest, low readability as well for those middle school students. So they're going to be reading rich texts that are of high interest to them, but at a readability that they can handle. So that's another really good plus as well that I just wanted to mention. And so I'm going to finish up with my last slide as our partnership. So Lisa, if you can just move me to the next slide. So our partnership,
Molly, before you move forward, the content in Reading Plus goes through college level, so that if you have kids that are gifted and talented, they will have content, and the content is like Melissa mentioned with the Netflix. The students rate the passages when they're finished. And if we get enough passages that kids are just like, then we throw it out. And we are constantly updating. So if you have a student that only wants to read about sports and they're in the program for longer than a year, they'll never have to read the same material twice.
That's great.
Thank you,
Kathy, Earl had his hands up.
Yep. I just saw that. Mr. Campbell?
Yes, I had 2 questions. One is the students in virtual classes, do they have the same amount of time to complete the assignment as the students doing face-to-face?
Yes. so each lesson takes about 15 minutes. Reading plus language is a combo, so it might be a vocabulary lesson, and then you do a reading comprehension lesson, and so then you can be up to 30 minutes. But that is strategic, so the teacher can plan it out to make sure that there's some continuity.
Okay. My second question is, have the district notified, have been notified, say, had to discuss this with anyone in the community, like the churches and stuff like that, as far as what you're doing?
Not churches specifically, but we have worked with some partners such as the United Way. But I can see where this could grow because it is a nice one to translate into the community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so just to finish up on the elementary pilot, we're going to be partnering with your pilot site administrator and the tech contact that you have and your pilot teachers. And we're going to be looking for them to make sure that they're monitoring their data monthly using that site reading progress report. We're going to make sure that they're ensuring that teachers are using Reading Plus with fidelity and celebrating the teacher and student success, because that's so important. That's a really important part of any program or any, for a year program, a pilot, whatever, just to make sure that they are using it with fidelity. Your tech contact is going to ensure that the devices will support Reading Plus, which I don't think there's an issue because you have it at the middle school and the high school. And we're already getting our integration team on our end to work with your tech contact to enroll those students, which again shouldn't be a problem because we already have done it at the middle school and the high school for you. So we're good with that. And then the pilot teachers, we're going to be asking them to monitor their data frequently, and I'm going to be showing them how to do that through the training and ensuring that the students are making progress, and then showing them how to provide support if students need it. Because you know that it is a personalized program, and the teachers, if the students do need some support on that, we can make sure that they get the support they need, but they should be able to use it independently as well. And we're going to celebrate the student success through those Reading Plus contests and competitions, which we're excited about that, because that also helps to keep your students motivated and excited so that they are building their reading growth. So I'm excited to get started with your teachers at the elementary level.
Great. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I just have one question. Is there an expectancy in terms of the uses of this across the board? That's probably for Dr. Stratus or Melissa. But, are teachers expected to use this, particularly not the pilot programs per se, as much as the program we have on board, the middle school students and high school students? Is there an expectancy, or is there another part of your toolkit?
So from the middle school, Mr. Campbell, the expectation is that it is integrated into our ELA, into all our middle schools for use, especially in the classes that we have our students who are not at reading level. We currently have onboarded one high school. Our goal is to onboard additional high schools since we have the availability for service for them. At this time and place, we're working with our executive directors between Ms. Dixon and Dr. Cox, actually, to say, hey, where is Reading Plus within the schools? Because the expectation is if we have an English 1 and an English 2 course, and we have students who are not at proficiency, are we integrating support that will help fluency and comprehension, that will be intuitive, addresses reading level, addresses high interest for students, and also lends to that little piece of discretion that you don't know what level I'm at. So that we are working at to build that amongst our other high schools.
Okay, so I guess you're saying there is no clear-cut number of minutes that should be used of Reading Plus in the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade by the English language teachers.
No, there is
Well-
90 minutes. No, I apologize, sir. At a minimum, 90 minutes a week. That is the hour. and a half.
Everyone.
That is
How
the
do
hour
you,
and a half.
how do you monitor that?
That comes from the data report and usage reports that
Okay.
Lisa, that is a
Okay.
monitoring tool, and bi-monthly, that is part of from my seat, it's a bi-monthly reporting analysis that's provided to us and also shared with our directors who are online with us.
Okay, so by monthly, you should see how much is being used, and what if it's not being used? What do you do to correct it? Do they continue to? I mean, I'm just trying to say, how does that proactive monitoring get to the site, get to the student?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're monitoring from afar, and the teachers are not using it, and the evidence is piling up, but there's no redirect. You know what I mean? When is the redirecting occurring? Next year or?
Mm-mm. So
Yeah.
that actually goes through what we've now put in place at the district level's academic committee, which is inclusive on a weekly basis of conversation with the executive directors, as well as inclusive of Dr. Bradley. So it's Dr. Bradley, the EDs, and ISD together. And this is part of that communication process of, hey, what are we doing? What are we seeing at school sites? Also planning, right? Planning. But that system now has been put into place at the district level, that we have that weekly communication. That's a Monday afternoon tool. So our plan is that this information, if we're not meeting the mark, we're not seeing what school X and Y is doing, look where they're at, we communicate to those who are the direct line with the principals
Okay.
in order to bring that information forward. Yeah, it would be useless if we didn't put something in place, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I mean, and that it's across the board. It's fair, you know. Well, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to ask one question, Mrs. Robine, may I?
Oh, absolutely.
Because Earl Campbell brought something up, and I made a side note here. Because we haven't reached out to the churches because of the DSS licensing that ended last year with the satellite work. And maybe just offline to ask, maybe to have a conversation to facilitate with Mr. Earl Campbell in some of our local churches to speak maybe with Reverend Moore about it, because if we update the information to the parents, it's a greater possibility.
Somebody's echoing.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Doc.
A greater possibility of having, if I help mom, caregiver learn, they could go back and mention to the children, right? Hey, are you doing your Reading Plus? Sharing the celebration, some information. So I may be reaching out for some type of conversation. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Stratos, I think you just brought up a great point that, if we had some parent programming
Mhm.
on the use of this tool, then the parents could have, see their students using it at home or ask them about it. So try and, maybe provide some parent training. I know Title I schools used to require that you have some parent trainings. And so perhaps this could be part of a parent training.
Right. And in other words, us going to you.
Right.
So I appreciate the questioning because it helped me align something. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions at this time?
No.
All right. Well, I look forward to hearing more updates about the data as you collect it. And I do know that from watching kids use these types of tools before, where they're being guided in their reading, and it's and with high interest, that it's usually a pretty motivating in itself. So if we can get the kids in the right place and provide them with that text that's interesting to them, it has great potential, I think, to keep them engaged in reading.
Kathy Williams' hands up.
Okay, William?
No, I was definitely going to say that I definitely agree with what Ms. T. Campbell said, along with along with Dr. Scrattles, and I would definitely like some information on that as well when she give information to Mr. Campbell. I would definitely like some information on that for my area churches as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate that. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't see any other hands. Robin, do you see any hands?
No. William, your hand is still up. Do you have another question? Thank you. Nope,
Okay.
I don't see any other hands.
All right, so then at this time, I think that concludes the presentation on Reading Plus, and I thank you very much, Dr. Stratos, for bringing this team forward. We look forward to getting the one question answered about the data that we had on the one slide, and look forward to having some progress monitoring data as we move forward. So that concludes at this time this portion of our meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
us.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Yep. So the next thing on our agenda is just to academic committee meeting to set the next date. I do think that Dr. Stratos, I think that in September we will have some OEs that will be coming forward.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't have that right in front of me. I apologize, but but I did think there were a couple of OEs in the instructional realm that were based on what we just approved.
Approved on Tuesday, yes.
Would be coming in September.
Yes, ma'am. 12.13, 12.9, 12.3. That comes out of the instructional program, OE 12.
Okay.
And I'm just checking to see if anything else, because we will be picking up OE 14 and 15 until anything else. So actually under OE 14, we have 14.1, 14.2. So it would be a total of 5 yes, 5 OEs in the month of September.
Okay. Do you think that those are doable? Since my book with the OEs is downstairs. Are those doable for one meeting, or do you think we will have to have 2? I know, if I remember correctly, like one of them is to certify that we follow
Viable curriculum.
Of the South Carolina curriculum, right?
Yes, yes.
I don't think that involves a lot.
I am bringing the details up right now. If you just give me a moment.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And the embargo data is released after midnight tonight, just an FYI.
Okay.
Okay. So the alignment of curriculum with South Carolina standards. Protect the instructional time provided for students, which is technically a bell schedule. The adequately monitoring and control student access to utilization of electronic distributed information. And that I was going to use the information from Destiny for the distribution. As of last Friday, I want to say we were at 96% distribution of electronic devices. And on discipline, or I'm sorry, I apologize, learning environment, would be maintain a climate that is characteristic by support and encouragement for high student achievement, support staff efforts to address unruly student behavior, to work in partnership with parents and DSS, and to expedite the return of students to an appropriate learning environment. So that would be our transitioning and re-entering process utilized for students either to write choices or returning back in from expulsions.
Okay, so for these OEs, we also, we have to do the first part of it, right? Where the superintendent determines how he's interpreting this. That's what needs to happen at these, yeah.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
then, okay, so based on what I heard, I feel like we could do that in a 2-hour meeting. What do you think, Dr. Stratos?
I believe so. But I would ask, just for respect of time, since we finalized this just the other day, for the latter part of September, if possible.
Oh, yes, well, we usually meet the last
Yes.
September. So I was looking at September 20,
Second,
we meet on a Wednesday, right?
Yes,
correct. So it would be the 22nd at 4:45.
Does that work, Dr. Stratos?
we will make it work, ma'am.
Okay,
There's no
All
way
right.
to get the 29th, Robin.
well, yeah, what
the
about the 29th?
That's up to you all. There's
I mean,
nothing scheduled.
Are these scheduled to go to the board in September?
No, the full OE to the board, full board presentation. Let me just pull that form back up, sir. On OE 12, full board presentation, I believe, is July.
Mhm.
OE 14, full board presentation is November.
Okay.
So if we do it on the 29th, I think what has happened, it seems like the last time, the OEs, the individual OEs are accepted or approved by the committee, and then they're placed on
Consent agenda.
And then if anyone wants to pull them off, to look at them for the full board, they are able to pull them off. That's what we did this last time, but there were,
Yeah, but I'm assuming going forward, since we approved the superintendent's schedule, that the committees would be somewhat coordinated with the superintendent's schedule. Does that make any sense? I mean,
well,
I'm just saying the consent agenda should be okaying OEs as prescribed by the superintendent, not the ones that are brought in. If they're not in a coordinated sense, then we'll be, for example, you said July, we'll be looking at an OE that's really not going to be brought to the board until July. That's when we should probably be looking at it from our committee standpoint, July.
Correct.
well, I think if you look at what we just approved, like OE 12.13, OE 12.9, and OE 12.3, all on that calendar that we just approved were to come to committee in September. So that's what we're trying to do.
Right.
Then once they come to committee, we'll put them on the board under consent agenda, is my interpretation of the process.
That's correct.
The calendar did suggest that we look at them now.
In September, yes.
Then where did July date come from?
Dr. Stratos?
My understanding that was full board to give you evidence on a sheet of saying we have provided for let's say OE 12.0 instructional program. The evidence for 12.1 through 12.17 would be a summary sheet, dates of presentation of to academic committee, and that information would be brought forward to full board as a summary with the confirmation of the dates of presentation and what was that evidence, a summary of that, not going through all the evidence again. That was my understanding. I may.
Yeah, I think that's something that we need to think about a little bit, but I think that's right. It was, that would be, in July would be a summary of all the components of the
Of everything.
Of everything. But in the meantime, we've broken it apart on the calendar, and we will be looking at things as designated by the calendar. But I think that
I'm still cloudy on that. process because I was under the interpretation the reason we wanted to clean it up so that it could have, some kind of fluidity in the terms of the committees looking at it and the board okaying that it's being done in a coordinated form, and the superintendent was monitoring it the way he wanted it monitored, the way he wanted to present it. That's why we okayed that thing last year, that he's monitoring. This is when I want to show it. And we want to look at it before we put it on that consent agenda, not look at it this month and then it's on the consent agenda in July or vice versa.
Well, no, but go on. I'm sorry.
Can I say, if you have the thing, what they have, like if you're looking at 12.0, because you have to monitor every single number on there, they have it broken up coming to the academic that's the work that you're doing. So by the time that you get to July, you have gone through every single piece. So when you're looking at the calendar, they have 12.1 under the shells. You have from September, October, November, each month there is a piece of the 12.1 that you're looking at and that you're dealing with at committee level. And then by the time you have gone through the whole OE, it will take you by June, July, August, or whatever, when you're going, because it looks like there's 17 lines.
There are 17, yes.
And so if you're dealing one per month, it looks like you're dealing like one or two per month. It takes you the whole year to get through each and every one of them.
Okay, so you're saying, for clarity, if we're doing 12.1 and 12.2, 12.3, it's not going to go to the board in the consent agenda.
No, sir.
It all will be withheld until July.
No.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
No, so like 12.3, which is up on, to be, according to the calendar we just approved, is align curriculum with South Carolina standards. So at next month's meeting, I would expect that aligned curriculum with South Carolina standards would be brought forth with the superintendent's interpretation of how he's going to measure that. Okay.
And
and then, he presents that's presented with his interpretation and with the data. And then as the committee, we say, that makes sense to us. And if we agree with it, we would put it on the consent agenda.
Exactly.
And then other, people could pull it off if they wanted the whole board to discuss.
We understand that part of it. I just want to make sure it gets there and it's done, and we don't have to revisit the whole deal in July.
Right. I think it'll just be a checklist in July. Mel, that's what I would.
There are a couple of people with their hands up. Just to FYI.
Okay. All right.
So
Ingrid's hands up and then William's hands up.
Okay, Ms. Boatwright?
Well, I was just listening, and I don't know if the way I view it is like these are like quizzes as you go along the school year, and then in July you take a cumulative exam, So we're doing these quizzes along the way, and you don't go back and revisit them all individually, but there's sort of an overview at the end that shows, did you learn the material? So that's kind of how I'm viewing it, as far as, I don't know if that's at all helpful, or if I'm wrong, but that's kind of how I see it.
No, I think that's probably in line with what we're talking about. Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith, you're breaking up.
And I was kind of finding it problematic that we have different views on it. So I was hoping that possibly we could take it to the full board to get some clarity on it. That is concerning, so that we can know, because I going to get the beginning of it, and now
you can't hear him.
Mr. Smith, you're breaking up. What I heard you say is that this is what I could hear, that you think this should be taken to the full board to get some clarity on it. But I couldn't make out anything else you said.
Yeah, I agree with that because it definitely concerns me.
Okay, what is it? I think we've had this discussion as a full board, and we had decided that the things would go on consent agenda.
That was a vote taken.
Yeah, but that's not the question. The question isn't whether it goes on a consent agenda or not. The question is what count. Ingrid said that she thought it was quizzes and then a checklist, but there's no checklist for all of those OEs in July. Just 12 is coming up in July, from what I understand, not all, 17 of them. Because if it's a checklist and we get to July, then all 17 of them should just be checklists that we cover them all.
That would be my understanding. OE 12 in its entirety,
which is 1 through 17.
What about 13? OE 13 in its entirety? OE 14 in its entirety?
That comes in October. OE 13 comes in October in its entirety, along with OE 15 in October. So each month, the different OEs are scheduled.
That's according to what we've just okayed from the superintendent?
Yes, sir. I'm looking at the annual plan right now.
Huh?
Yes, sir. So like in January, you have OE 16 and OE 8 coming in its entirety.
Okay. I still don't have a vision of how that's going to look like. In January, then the superintendent presents OE 8. 16 is its entirety, and we would have looked at all the smaller components of OE 16.
Right, because there's not much there on OE 16. So in January, you have 16.1, and then you have quarterly meetings, which is 16.2. That comes to you quarterly. OE 16 is FOIA.
Oh, okay. All right.
So there's only like 2 components in OE 16. So in January, you'll get the entire OE 16 and then OE 8, which is facilities.
How will the facilities have been
Facilities is broken out. When you look at it, it says like facilities is 8.2. It comes as needed. It's like A, B, C, D. That comes out as needed. And then on the back of his works, on the back of the plan, he has each of the broken out. So some things comes as needed, and then
when do we look at that OE entirely in January?
He has OE 8 coming in January.
In OE 8, that facilities would be under the operations committee, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's operations, yeah.
Yeah.
So under that, you get the construction update, which is monthly. That's part of which comes out as needed or monthly.
Okay.
William's hands back up.
Mr. Smith?
I took it down. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Okay, I think I've got some clarity on it. I mean,
Okay. Well, and again, I think
I'm not sure I agree with that process because it's just as jumbly as it always has been in terms of our having a coordinated assessment of what's going on. But anyway.
Yeah, well, I think, we can have a discussion. The other thing is, Mel, I think we had a discussion like this before.
Yeah.
OE 12 has 17 individual, very different components. And to have one presentation that covered all 17 of those components would be pretty difficult, would be very lengthy, it'd be a whole day.
Well,
right?
Yeah, but he's got it laid out when he's going to give those elements, right? OE 12
that's what he's done.
Yes.
The whole year, right?
Yes.
And
that's
finally,
what we just approved. Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay?
Yeah, I'm
And-
just not, the consent agenda items, I don't think should be approved unless we're approving the whole OE or vice versa, because who's keeping a checklist when we don't okay it? Or, we're rubber stamping 7 of them and 6 of them are not rubber stamped for some reason or another. Anyway, go ahead. That's another topic, another time. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I think the committee chairs would be responsible for keeping that checklist and if things weren't approved. But, yep.
Williams,
Okay.
hands up.
Mr. Smith?
Well, I think that we should definitely bring this up to the board because I do agree that, I mean, I don't think it's just on the committee chairs, because as we all serve on the board as a whole, I think we all kind of are responsible for this information and how we process it and at this point I think that we all with this, with it being a slew of information that will be rubber stamping or approving, I think that it will be in our best interest that we can do it to where it will be conducive and it can have teeth in every bit and piece of it, and that everyone can process it as we go along. And I think if it's spread it out, then out of sight, out of mind. But when it's together, then you're processing and understanding exactly what's going on and what's been approved and what's not, and you're moving more in sync. But to me, it brings great concern, and I really think that I mean, I'm not on that committee, but I'm hoping that y'all would bring this full discussion to the full board, because even if we had it again, maybe we need to revisit it. And I don't think it never hurts to have a conversation to revisit information.
Okay, thank you for your opinion, Mr. Smith. I think that with 17 components of the instructional, I just don't think that's possible. And things in our OE need to be measured at different times and reported on at different times, because there are things about data, and we don't have data all at the same time. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I think that, that could certainly be put on the agenda of a board for a future topic if you so desire.
And thank you for that. But also, I do understand that there are certain times of the year that data is given, but given the times that when there aren't data driven information or topics or OEs, then there are other OEs that could be knocked out at one cell or do different grace periods at a time to make everything comprehensive, to understand what is going on is my point. And I do understand that, and I have been in the educational process to understand that. And at certain times you have the end of the testing at end of the testing year, beginning. So I do understand what you're saying. There's validity in it, but the question is not just that. The question is how are we measuring, and how are we keeping it, and how are we understanding what is all that is being given to us? Because you can be given a slew of information, and really means not much, because it's so much piece by piece. So therefore, you don't have what you need to piece together to make the puzzle hold. That's my point. Thank you.
Well, perhaps that's an issue for the policy committee. I think that we just all, as a board, just approved the calendar, the work plan, which spelled out how and when we were going to get this data. So, okay, so at this time, are there any future topics for the academic committee?
So are you going to meet on the 29th instead of the 22nd?
Yes, there's 29th. That I think will help.
Okay.
Since we have, and it's for the purpose of those 5 OEs.
And are you going to meet at 4:45?
Angela, does that work for you, or 4:30? What's the earliest?
Can we meet at 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it. 29th at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Mr. Campbell, Ms. Middleton, any future topics in addition to these OEs?
No.
Okay. All right. I think we're ready to adjourn. All in
Madam
favor?
Chair,
Yes,
I move that we adjourn for the day.
okay.
All right, a second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
All right,
All right, have a good week, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Take
all
care.
right, thank you.